Yo! It's me, your voice behind HAZCAR, Orgnet, whatever you want to call me, as long as you've got a name for me, but it's me. Excuse me, sorry about that. I'm here today recording this and speaking to you because I realized, although the document is linked under every stream and under the introduction video, I never properly explained the point system for this series. So here I am. I'm gonna give you a quick rundown of the HAZCAR point system, make it comprehensible, give you examples. Overall, make it an easy listen if you don't want to read all of that, because trust me, I worded it the best way I could, and it might not make sense to some people. Now, before we begin, do know this. I made this format based on the real world format. This format was originally not intended to be used. It was just a little take on the current actual NASCAR format, but just to make it more legit and more tolerable. This, as it's written on the points sheet, do note this format is an attempt to take the current playoff format in the real world and tweak it to make it, for lack of a better word, actually tolerable. Beginning with your regular season points, these remain unchanged from the real format. P1 is 40 points, then from P32 all the way down to P36 is going to be 35 to 1 point. So P32, 35, P33 gets 34, P3 gets 34, and then P4 gets 33, and then blah blah blah, all the way down the order until you get to P36 and further back, which all get 1 point. Stage points also remain the same from 10 to 1 for P1 to P10. If you're first, you get 10 points. If you're 10th, you get 1 point. Winning your in is gone during the regular season. Playoff spots are only earned by points. Only. However, playoff system. As much as it pains me to say it, because we're basing this off the real world format, we need to keep a playoff system, which means we need to keep a bracket style elimination format, and we need to find a way to make it fair. So, the playoff system will work as follows. The top 16 finishing positions will have a change in earned points. The changes are as follows. P1 gets 55 points, P2 gets 50 points, P3 gets 48 points, P4 gets 46 points, and so on down the order. I'll have it up on the screen in post. Stage points also will look like this. I'll put it alongside. The rest of the points stay the same. So after 22, you get, after P16, you get 20 points for P15, and then for P17, and then all the way down the order, it's minus 1 point instead of minus 2, like it is for the playoff drivers. Stage points are also changed. 15 points for P1, so on and so forth. I'll have it all up on the screen. These points also apply to all the extra points races. So for example, the Joe Gibbs 500, or the Coca-Cola 600, or the Canada 500, the Cinder Block Yard 400, the Pepsi 400. All these races with extra points available. This point increase will still apply. This is, if it has that arrow, then these points are going to be used, right? So, for example, in the Joe Gibbs 500, just about a few races away, if you win, you get 55 points instead of 40, even though it's not a playoff race. So that's going to be fun. Now, where was I? Oh, right, yeah. The rest of the points remain the same, no playoff points, but the regular season standing bonuses will still apply. This means that in real life, when you finish in a certain spot in the regular season, you get a certain amount of playoff points. In our system, it will be translated to regular points, obviously. Winning your in does make a return, but in a heavily tweaked state. Instead of rewarding every driver with a spot in the next round, every winner with a spot in the next round, it'll only reward the driver with the least points going into the respective round. So, for example, going into the round of 12, the driver who enters that round 12th will be the only driver who can win their way into the next round. This will not apply during the Final Four for obvious reasons, because if the guy in 4th wins a race, he'll win a championship, and that's not fair to the other drivers, right? So let's look here at the current Cup standings post-Atlanta. Chris Buescher leads the playoffs. Daniel Suarez is on the cusp. If we entered the playoffs like this, the only driver who could win and lock themselves into the next round is Daniel Suarez, which he would have the yellow banner with black text instead of yellow banner with green text. Same goes with the Car of Tomorrow standings, right? Robbie Gordon is currently on the cusp of the playoff line by 0 points. He's by a tiebreaker. And because of that, if Robbie Gordon entered the playoffs in that spot, then he would be the only driver who could win and lock himself into the next race, and he would get the yellow banner with black text. So that's how that's going to work. Moving on, points resets will also be changed to not be reset to a certain level per se, but rather add an equal amount of points to everyone's count. So for example, entering the first round, every playoff driver would have 500 points added to their total, and for the rounds following, they would get 1,000 points entering each round. For example, let's say you have 2,334 points after the cutoff race. This is obviously not possible, but we'll go with it. You would then enter the playoffs with 2,834 points. This would allow for the most consistent and competitive drivers to still retain their leads, making it fair and rewarding the best drivers with those cushions, while also separating the playoff drivers from non-playoff drivers in the standings. Additionally, the start of each round, for each place you are above the cut line, you will have twice that many points removed from your total as an attempt to even the playing field and increase competition. I just had a stroke reading it, but for example, 7 places above the cut line has 14 points taken away. So Chris Buescher, right, if we started the playoffs right now, skipped every race all the way up until Daytona or Richmond, the playoff opener, then Chris Buescher would have 32 points taken away from his current 149. Obviously later in the season, with bigger points gaps, this might, after a bit of dominance from 1 or 2 drivers, might see less use and less effectivity than we're seeing right now, because right now that would be ridiculous, and Chris Buescher would lose his would lose his entire lead. Right? So it's not very fair starting the playoffs just 4 races into the season. But it does make sense later on with higher points. Unfortunately, as much as getting rid of them would make the average fan happy, points resets and changes are necessary for a playoff format to work, and we're not straying away from playoffs, unfortunately. Speaking of rounds, they'll also be rearranged. Instead of a 3-3-3-1 format, it will be reversed. 1-3-3-3. The Pepsi 400, then Richmond's going to be a wild card race, right? This will be reversed. The first round will serve as a wild card round to weed out the drivers who may have fluked their way into the playoffs via super speedway races or however many. Then the round of 12 and 8 remain unchanged, leaving the final 4 now becoming a 3-race fight to the cup. I think many people agree that this is a much better way to arrange the rounds. Ideally, 12 rounds would be good, and then 9 rounds. Or 12 races and then 9 races for the lower series, but no can do, bro, chacho. So that's what we're doing. The lower series will see a 1-3-3 instead of 1-3-3-3. So 7 races instead of 10. Overall, the system, although not objectively perfect based on your preference, is a great improvement to the current NASCAR point system, still employing every aspect of the actual format, but legitimizing the championship a lot more. Obviously, it's still a very, very complicated system and does need a bit of explaining to do, maybe even some visuals, but should allow for more deserved drivers to take the cup home every season. Lastly, penalties. This is where rules come in. Penalties, we've seen penalties handed out to Chase Elliott and Ross Chastain so far, and I think one other guy, right? The penalty points. Yeah, Ross Chastain Chase Elliott, and now Tyler Reddick have a penalty point. Tyler Reddick was disqualified at Atlanta. That's a penalty point. Chase Elliott failed to take the blue flag, resulting in a major alteration in the race outcome at the Diet Coke 500, so that was a major penalty point. And then Ross Chastain had a very dangerous re-entry, heavily altering the outcome of the HAZCAR 500. Penalty point. 3 penalty points will result in a 50-point dog. 5 penalty points is an 85-point dog. 8 penalty points is a 100-point penalty. And 10 penalty points means you are no longer eligible for the playoffs, even if you're in that spot, even if you're that far up in the standings. Say you could be leading the points, but if you have 10 penalty points or more, you can't participate for a championship. So it makes drivers have to be a bit more careful with what they're doing. That being said, that's the entire point system right there. I'll try to come up with some visuals for everything. You know, I'll figure out a way to make it show up on screen. You'll probably already seen it if I'm uploading this. So yeah, that's all I have. Right, you've had everything on the screen. So yeah, that's about it. Peace. Oh yeah, tune in tomorrow, Wednesday, maybe even today, for Cup Darlington. Carl Edwards won our lower series race, so tune in. Coming off of turn 4, JJ Yaley gets his first win in Atlanta. Tyler Reddick coming to the front stretch into the tri-oval. He wins the HAZCAR 500. Unbelievable. Chase Briscoe, the number 14 for Stewart-Haas Racing, is going to come to the line. He's going to win the Diet Coke 500. Carl Edwards will come to the line and take his first win of the season. He's going to go on the inside into turn 2, or into turn 3. Alex Bowman on the inside. They're 3 wide. They're 3 wide. Chris Buescher and Alex Bowman side by side all the way to the line. Photo finish. Unbelievable. Alex Bowman takes home the win in Atlanta.